Joining us now is Alex Stamos, former Facebook chief security officer. He has been critical over Facebook's policies, even going as far as calling for Mark Zuckerberg to step down. Alex, great to have you with us.
Thank you.
In your view, what is the greatest challenge facing the company? We touched on a few of them just now with Julia.
Well, I think the greatest big challenge is that Facebook has put itself in a position where it is now the arbiter of what is acceptable speech, including political speech globally. And what you're seeing is the company be placed in a situation where very powerful forces, not just from these advertisers and civil rights groups, but also people who are currently in government, are on very different sides of what they think should be acceptable ways that political speech should be controlled online. And because there is really no legal framework here, this is up to Facebook themselves. And they are kind of vacillating back and forth as the political winds shift in making these decisions, it seems, in a little bit of a haphazard manner.
Had there been anything done since the past election when Facebook was under such scrutiny for allowing election interference?
Oh, there's been a ton done. So to be clear, I don't think there's a company that's doing more around election interference than Facebook. So as the civil rights talked about, there's over 200 people who are working on a dedicated team. So this is a team that started while I was there. That's grown significantly around, again, about 200 people working on ferreting out election interference. The problem is, I think what you're seeing is kind of a tale of two companies, where you have people at that level who are building these teams, building these processes, who are looking for and trying to ferret out groups that are going to interfere in the election. And that's being overshadowed by these really big political decisions that are being made at the top level of the company. And so whatever this team does to take down dozens and dozens of groups to try to improve their enforcement, it doesn't really matter if you're in a situation where it looks like the largest impact on voting disinformation might come from the president himself. And what has happened is Facebook has effectively exempted political leaders from some of the rules that are being applied to other people. And that is the core of a lot of this controversy. And so I think it's going to be hard for them to get out. Just doing better by having a bigger team and better content moderation isn't going to do much for them as long as Mark Zuckerberg is digging in his heels and won't revisit how they're going to treat President Trump and people that in his orbit of the information they put out.
Speaking of that, digging in his heels, Alex, clearly as chief security officer, you work closely with Mark Zuckerberg. You know him. I'm curious your thoughts on his motivation right now. He's resisting change that's being discussed by this audit that came out. He's resisting change that the advertisers are demanding right now. What is his motivation? What does he care most about, the brand or the bottom line?
It's hard to get into Mark's head on some of these things. I think he feels like he's probably taking a principled position here around what kind of control Facebook should have over political speech. And to be honest, this is actually a really hard problem, right? There is a reason why in our country we don't have laws around this, because we have decided that more political speech is generally better and that it is very dangerous to allow centralized, powerful organizations to control that speech. Now, in the case of Facebook, we're talking not just about whether people speak or not, but about amplification. And I think that's the mistake that Mark keeps on making, that he made first in his Georgetown speech last year, which is he is considering only that whether or not the speech exists or not, and whether or not Facebook should be seen as censoring, in some cases, democratically elected leaders, when really it should be about what kind of capability does Facebook provide people to amplify their speech well beyond what would have been possible 5-10 years ago before everybody was on social media. And if he changed his view on that and applied a little more of a subtle kind of model to this, I think he could do a lot better. And the company I think that's done well here is Twitter, right? Is that Twitter has decided it is very difficult for them to deplatform the president of the United States. But that what they can do is that if there's a situation where an elected politician comes out and has election disinformation, they will label it as such. They will use their own First Amendment right to say, we don't agree with this and we don't think this is true. And they will limit the spread of that message so that they have found kind of a middle way. And I think that's the kind of middle way that if Mark had adopted a couple of months ago, Facebook would be in way better shape right now.